Sing Ila Haidala Isis, Kalkajad Hino Dihad Kilgakayang. I'm Erin Brillin, and I'm from the Haida and Cree Nations. Together with my husband, Andy Everson, we have dedicated ourselves to the revitalization and preservation of our cultures. But as each month passes, our communities along the coast lose precious elders. Every time an Indigenous elder passes, gone with them is a lifetime of wisdom that is lost to the coming generations. The Next Ancestors podcast features Indigenous elders and cultural knowledge keepers who have amassed a wealth of knowledge to share with us all. Indigenous wisdom is needed now more than ever to help us navigate in these uncertain times. And through this podcast series, each episode will serve to preserve this valuable wisdom to share with the world before it's too late. We're here today with Dr. Evelyn Voyageur, and she is a fluent Kwakwala speaker, as well as she's spent over 5 decades in the nursing field, along with so many other accomplishments. And you received the Inspire Award for Health in 2018, which is a huge accomplishment. And we're just so happy to have you join us because you are such a wealth of knowledge, and we hope to capture some of that today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I have a few traditional names given by different family members, but the one I use when we're in a big house is Gilgili Silak, and it comes from my great-grandfather's sister on the Willie side. Yeah, that's the one I use. That's how I introduce myself, but I have a few others that, you know, when family members had polygyny and they would bestow a dance or something, and I would get a name. Yeah. And I am from the Musqueam because of the 4 tribes within one, but I am registered in the Zawadeno, and my grandmother, my dad's mom, came from Guilford Island, and my mom's side is Zawadeno. My grandfather came from Kingcome too, my dad's dad. And I can name all the tribes that I'm associated with somehow through my lineage. Like my mother's grandmother, she came from Fort Rupert. Her name was Okwilowa. And that's how I'm connected to the Waniks and the Newmans in Kwagil tribe. Then my great-great-grandmother came from Rivers Inlet, my dad's grandmother. So I can trace my lineage to theirs. So.
It's nice when you can recognize all your connections and all your lineages.
It is. It's really fulfilling when I see, and I tell the people, I say, you know, did you know we're connected? And I would explain, even here in Comox, tell people when I know, like to do that. To me, it's part of teaching. Yeah.
So when you were growing up, who were some of the teachers who taught you the most about culture, and what are some of the key teachings that you remember?
I believe all of them, my mother, my grandmother, and my dad, and my mom's family. My mom was the only child of the head chief of the Raven clan in Kingcome. Her uncles built a house for my mom and dad, and all of them surrounded her. There are 2 on that side and 2 on those uncles. So they were all a part of our lives because we were living right close to them. And then my maternal grandmother always took me to potlatches. It was outlawed, and we were still doing potlatches. But I would sit. I have a few photos of me sitting in a big house with my grandmother. So I believe they all had a big part of the teachings, taking us to the big house and always talking to us, And even though I went to the residential school at the age of 10, I'm very glad and happy for the first 10 years of my life, because I was raised at home and learned. I never, ever remember being bored. I was always busy, even at, young as I was, 10 years old when I left home, But berry picking, making baskets, going with my grandmother to the woods to pick the roots and things that she needed for her basket weaving. She was a weaver, and my mother was too. And the fact that my dad, he is one of the ones that didn't go to the residential school. He wasn't allowed by his father. And I said, why? Why didn't he let you go? He said, he told me to look at all my older siblings, my cousins, my brothers. They came home from the residential school and they didn't know how to work anymore. Didn't know how to have the skills to do anything, And that's what his dad said to him, you're not going to be like that. I don't want you to be like that. You're going to learn all these. So when the Indian agent and the cops and them came picking the kids up, his dad took him into the mountains and hid him there. So, and he left us a lot of tapes.
Oh.
He got a lot of tapes, and I would listen to it, especially when I was studying my PhD. I used to listen to my dad, and I really believe he gave me the courage to do the study that I did, because just listening to him and hearing the stories, and I mean, it's amazing when you just sit there and listen to the tapes, My grandparents, my parents, and my mom's uncles, who were my grandfathers too, I believe they all had a hand in teaching us the way of life, And it was everyday part of life, not only in a big house, but in the way of life outside, how to honor the earth and what we did for our food and everything like that. So very lucky. I always say I'm very fortunate that I got to know and that I kept my language.
Yes.
I used to wonder, why do I always insist on praying in my language when I'm asked to pray? Then it hit me. It's because even though I was in a residential school, I didn't forget my language. So,
So are there any, say, really meaningful teachings that you still remember today and that you would like to share with us?
I believe that what is lost with our children is respect and kindness. I really believe it's really not being taught to our kids. And I keep saying we need to change the education system so that these could be a part of their teachings, part of learning how to be generous, how to love everybody, how to help each other, Because I seen it, There were some old people that didn't have any family. So one old lady, she had been married to my mom's uncle, but he passed away, and they had no kids. When her uncle died, she had nobody, and she couldn't walk. So my mom always made my sister and I go and make sure her fire's on and give her food. And in those days, we had outdoor toilets. And she used to make us go make sure that her potty is empty before it gets night, because she can't go walk outside, you know. All these things that we were taught how to help people. It's a must that children or anybody needs to learn how to help one another. And my mom was the child of the head chief of the Raven clan. And that's another thing that they used to teach us. Just because your grandfather was the head chief doesn't make you bigger than anybody else. You know, don't ever brag. People will know who you are by your actions. So that was drilled into us all the time, you know. And I seen my grandfather passed away, so the other brother, the next brother, took it. He too passed away. So the third brother got the chieftainship. But I can remember him standing outside, because as I said, my parents' house was right in the midst of all her uncles, and I can see him looking up and down. I used to wonder, what is he doing, you know, just standing there. And my mom said, well, he's making sure everything is okay and that people have what they need. That's what. Just because you're a chief, you don't act higher than anybody. In fact, you look after your people. You make sure they're okay. You make sure they got the things they need, you know. I think this teaching, I don't think, I know it should be passed on. Yeah.
I find that there's a lot of people who sort of misunderstand the role of the matriarch. And so I want you to tell us in the most clear terms, what is a matriarch? And also, what makes a good matriarch?
Well, someone who's a good teacher, I believe, is number one. Someone who really teaches the way, not demanding. Some of the teachers, no, you got to do it this way. It's wrong what you're doing. But there are some who will say, don't you think it would be easier doing it this way?
Right.
And then they'll show you. That's something I never ever heard in all my growing up years was, don't do that. I never heard that. I would hear, and they wouldn't say, don't do that, you're going to get hurt. I never heard those words. And they would say, just be careful. Yet osala. Those were the words I heard a lot. Yet osala. Be careful. And I believe those are the good teachings. I know that showing them how to do things is better than do it this way, you know.
Yeah.
Experiential is the best way to teach. It's more meaningful than just reading it and showing them how to do it. And that if they make a mistake, they can say, oh, I made a mistake. And that's okay. As Paul, my brother, always says, there are no mistakes. They're all learning, you know, learning ways. So I believe that the good teacher has the care how to do it and how to say things. Some people don't know how to bestow teaching because they're so negative. Yeah.
What I hear you saying too, it makes me think that some people think that this role of matriarch means that they can be critical and criticize people, whereas it's really the opposite. You're talking about teaching with kindness and gentleness and being gracious in that way. But we see the opposite a lot, don't we?
Yes, we do, and it's sad. I was taught that way by her, you know. We all know who the by hers are, you know. It's sad because some people believe it. believe that what they heard was the truth, Yeah.
So in your tribes, to become a matriarch, it's a very specific role that's passed on to the eldest. Is that how it works in your tribe? That's how it works in my culture.
Yeah. Well, it is usually to the older ones, but if that person doesn't have the ability, then they will pick someone who has, They will take it away and put it on somebody who is more able to do it, who can be doing it, Yeah. Because there are some people who just could never, especially if they've been in the white world and they learned so much negativity in the world, and that's all they were taught. That's how I learned about how to work with people. When I went to work for this one village, it really, really puzzled me why they didn't know how to look after their kids. So I started asking, why don't you know what to do? And one man said, you know what, Evelyn? We never learned those. And there was a residential school in that village I was in. We were raised in that school. And all we heard was, you're just nothing but a dirty little Indian. We never saw our parents look after our younger siblings. So that's why we don't know how. That's when I began to think, well, there's more to the problems in the villages than just physical. Something happened to them.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. And that's why I went to do my PhD, so I could learn more about what was wrong. Yeah. Well, I found out the biggest loss was identity. Yeah. That's what happened to our people.
So in Haida culture, we kind of lost a lot of our traditions, and we don't have any record of things like coming of age, for example. But I know that the coming of age ceremony and that process is something that you guys have never stopped doing. Can you tell us a little bit about the coming of age for women?
Yeah, we lost it for a while too, because of the outlawing of our. Molina was the first one that experienced it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when we returned it, yeah. Her mom, Carla, and Mike, who did the study, and I sat with Billy Bird's mom when I started wanting to know the full things. I sat with her and I asked her, well, why did they do those things? And she said, well, it was to prepare the girls. It was very, very serious to us that the girls stayed kind, nice, pure until they got married. Each tribe may do it a bit differently because I know the Fort Rupert did it longer. We do it for 4 days. The young girl is put in seclusion for 4 days, and the only ones with her are the matriarchs, the wise teachers of her clan, and they're with her day in and day out, and they're teaching her, they're talking to her, and every morning for 4 days she's taken into the water, cold bath every day. and then she goes back into and she's curtained off darkness. I said, why is it dark? Why did they not let her have light? She said, I'm 85, she said to me. And my eyesight's still good, she said.
It's to help with the eyesight?
Yeah.
To stay good? Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
she said it's to retain our eyesight. Then I get back to my mom, and my mom was 99 when she passed away. And we took her to an eye doctor, and the doctor, can you ask her if she can really see? Because Mom didn't speak English. So we asked Mom, "Dukla milasa?" And she said, "Oh yeah, I can see. The only thing I can't see is when I'm working with dark colors like knitting or crocheting. That's the only thing I can't see good. But otherwise, my vision is okay." And the doctor said, "Unbelievable."
No kidding.
Unbelievable. Her cataracts are so cooked, she shouldn't be seeing anything.
Wow.
And I thought, well, she went through that darkness.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was to retain their eyesight there when they got older. Another thing I asked was, well, they tie with goat wool, tie the chest and the arms and the waist and the feet. So why did they pick the goat wool? You know, there's other kind of wools. And again, they said goats live in a very rough terrain. They're up in the mountains. The weather's bad most of the time, way up there. But they're the gentlest animals. And that's what we want for the baby. And for the tenant, they use that too. And that's why we use them, so they could be like that. You know? And then she's given name. 4 days she's out there. 4 days. And then when they bring her back, she's walked in with the chiefs of her clan. There's more than one house in a clan, different family members. Anyways, they walk in with her, and then she will get her adult name, and she will get her a dance or whatever they will bestow upon her. You know. My thinking about these ceremonies was that, yes, I believe it kept our people balanced, you know, kept them well and healthy, you know. Every one of this, like there's ceremonies like the 10 months and all, and the coming of age, and they did it for the boys. They haven't really restored the boys one, where the uncles or grandfathers took them into the woods, and they lived off the land, and they didn't take food with them. They lived off the land, and whatever vision they saw, they come back on the 4th day too. And again, we have a big celebration for the boys. Yeah. So those coming of age ceremonies really helped, you know, especially when the whole community's involved and everybody is there celebrating with them. Billy Bird, when we did it for Molina, when Billy Bird got up to speak, they always get an older man to say the final words. And Billy Bird's words were to all you young men here, you see this young girl. She has now become a woman, and you're all to look after her. Right. You're all to cherish her. And that nurse that was sitting there was just shocked to hear it. She said it was such a good speech that, you know, you don't hear that anywhere.
Well, imagine if everyone had that experience. It would totally change the way young men and young women treat each other, because the men would know they have to honor and respect the woman, and then the woman would know that they have the support of all these people to make sure they're safe. And I mean, that would literally change our communities if everyone was able to have those kinds of connections. It's something that I hope to see more of in our communities. Like when my kids were growing up, we didn't know anything about the female coming of age, and so we sort of made one up for my daughter. When my sons were coming of age, it was during COVID, but we followed what little we did know about the Haida tradition. We brought them up to Skidegate and made them do the bathing and all that, and it was hilarious because it was just stormy like you wouldn't believe. So we had beautiful weather up until the day that we were supposed to do their ceremony, so they had to do going into the ocean when it was just big waves and just pouring down rain, and it was quite the scene. But we made sure to do it. But I think that doing the extra step where you welcome them back into the community and have a bigger community thing, I really hope to see that in more communities. Yeah, it's so important.
Yeah, I really believe the ceremonies that we held did help our children to be well and balanced. Not like the placenta. When you bury this placenta, well, why are you so fussy? Why do you need the sun and the grass? And my teacher said, well, it's going back to Mother Earth, and the grass, where the grass grows nice and green, and the sun shines upon it, they're going to be balanced in life. You know? That was the words that was said to me. So
that's good to know. I buried my placenta and I didn't really know why. I just did it.
yeah.
You've worked as a nurse for most of your life, but what I know about you is that you also have so much knowledge about traditional healing and traditional medicine. So if you can tell us how you've managed to kind of walk in both worlds, and you have this very Western knowledge and traditional knowledge, but you've been able to kind of blend those.
Blend them.
Yeah.
I don't really believe the Bible teachings, because I guess the reason why is because when we were in a residential school, it was so negative, like God was not a good God.
Yeah.
If you don't do this, God's going to send you down hell and burn. So I never really, I guess I didn't appreciate the way that we were taught, because when you think about it, our people always knew there was a God. Always. Christianity didn't bring it to us. Our people always prayed, no matter what they did. No matter what they did, they thanked the Creator. And when you think about it, we don't have a word for devil in our language. No. I guess took the good part of the white world and learned and compared it with ours, you know. Getting educated the Western way was challenging because of the racism, but I felt sorry for them because they didn't understand us, you know. They didn't really know our history, our stories, and I believe that's where it all comes from, even today. When I became a nurse, I saw the inequality of care in our healthcare. Yeah. A lot of it was misunderstanding. A lot of it was lack of knowledge of what we are. And I always say today, oh, too bad you didn't learn about us first before you judged. Yeah, and said we were heathens. Our world would have been more healthier, we could have gotten along better if they learned, like, we had our own spirituality. Yet they chose to say we were heathens because we didn't have a church, you know. But our people were more spiritual than them. Whenever we had fish or animals to eat, we always returned it to the water or to Mother Earth, telling them, you know, thank you for coming to our table. Go back and replenish and come back again. You know, we gave thanks like that, but they didn't know that. They just said we were worshiping these totem poles instead of really finding out how we are. No matter where I worked, I tried my best to educate everybody. 14 years from the day we walked into that office to the dean to change her curriculum, they phoned me and said, do you still have that paper? I said, yes. And could you come? We're going to have a meeting. We're going to start doing it, you know. So they stayed 14 years. Anyways, they started including some of the things that we said they need in a curriculum. And UVic has a few, but North Island College is way ahead of anybody, you know. We take the students to the villages and they live with the people and learn about them. We take them to the big house here and they've come a long ways, but still, we're still way behind. But they are beginning to listen but we need more. We need more inclusiveness of our way of life into the education system. And I keep saying that to them. I'm going to march into the government and say that to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm all
But
for
that's how I combine to live in the two worlds, is educate them and teach them more. And then be open to their ways too. But if you know it's not good for our people, then tell them so. And that's because they treat the symptom. They don't treat the cause, you know. And that's still something they don't seem to understand. They don't know how to treat the cause. It's just surface they treat it. And until that changes, our health will never get better, you know.
From what I've read about the work that you've done, that you believe that participating in culture is a form of prevention.
Oh, it is. Like I said, all the ceremonies that our children go through, you can tell the difference between very different, you know. Those girls are well behaved and they've gone through, all four of them went through the coming of age, you know. It is a must. It is a real must to bring back to our children, you know, the ceremonies, way of teaching, you know. Yeah.
Cultures are always evolving and changing, and we grow and change as time goes on. But do you think there's certain parts of our traditions that should remain the same, like things that we shouldn't deviate from, that we really need to adhere to the tradition?
I believe our ceremonies should stay the same because we didn't just make them up. They've been here eons and eons, and there are reasons why they were put there. We didn't just say, oh, this looks so good, let's do it this way, you know. But our old people have done it, you know, and there's stories behind all these things that we do. And it was for the benefit of our people, you know.
Can you think of any misconceptions that you see happening with our own people kind of not really understanding the way certain things work in our culture? Like, is there things that you can think of that you'd like to be corrected?
I can name a few. I'm going to give Andy's apology as an example. It was so meaningful because we knew where the dances came from, who it came from.
Yeah, the lineage.
All that, it's history. There is a family that's not doing that.
Yeah.
And there's 2 Hamatsas in her family. And we're all wondering, where did they come from? Because the father of one, they've never ever had a Pollock in the lineage. You know? And one of the same family, he had a Pollock, the young man. He was his own Hamatsa. He didn't have a copper. Yet the elders in that family allowed it to happen. You have to have a copper when you're going to potlatch. It has to have a history, has to have a name. Really, really hard to tell some of them. Like one of my own relatives has done a lot of things that are not right either. You can't seem to change these people's minds that are doing that. You know?
But it's a misunderstanding of how those protocols work, right? Like if it belongs to a box, the person who's in charge of that box gets to say where it goes.
Yeah, yeah.
And instead of thinking like once it's been on somebody in the family that it just automatically goes to you, or you can automatically pass it on.
Yeah,
It's
she
like
did.
a total misunderstanding.
She passed it on to her great-granddaughter. And I'm just sitting there in shock. I said, she doesn't even have the right to pass it on, you know.
Yeah.
So there are people who are very domineering and doing that. And it's really sad.
The sad part about that too is that it seems like the people who are bold enough to do this kind of thing aren't the kind of people who will hear the feedback, and you know what I mean? Like they're not gonna hear it and change their mind about it.
It is really hard. It's kind of like talking to the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's sad, but it goes on. Yeah. And if anybody ever questions, I just say, what I do, I say, you want to listen to my dad? You know.
You've got the tapes of him setting things straight.
Yeah.
If you could say something for the younger generations about why being connected to culture and participating in culture is important and valuable, like what would you say to the younger generation?
Very important that we do everything correctly and the way it should be. Because if you don't, you're going to be talked about. People are going to say that's wrong. And know who you are. Know your history. Know your name. What does your name mean? Where did it come from? Who had it before you? Same as your clan. And whoever the head of your clan is the person who holds the treasure box. And with the consult of the older people, wise people in his clan, they will discuss who it goes to next. Yeah. It's very, very important that the children know this, because that's how our teaching was. Know who you are, know your history, know your family, and you'll never be wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like people get mixed up with the sense of ownership instead of recognizing that things are just being held for a time until it gets passed on. That's a different sense of ownership or responsibility than it is like, it's mine, right?
Yes,
it's
it is.
It's a different...
Yeah. You've held that dance long enough. It's time to pass it on. Hamatz, she had a hamatz. Well, it's mine. Can't I say who goes next? Who goes to next? And her brother looks at her and said, I'm sorry, it's not yours. It's in our treasure box. And I can tell you who it's going to. Said, that sure woke me up.
How you said it before about how matriarchs have a way of gently teaching and correcting is it's always better than when you have the people who are really criticizing. You've developed different programs that have helped non-Indigenous people really understand Indigenous ways of being. Do you want to share some teachings that you feel that non-Indigenous people can learn from our people?
Yeah. As I said, experiential is learning. It's better than reading it and doing things online. Getting them to come and experience it. That's the way I see the change in these nursing students that have come. And we take them to Kingcome or to Rivers Inlet, and they live with them for a number of days and live right with the families. Get to really know and understand. Take them all over, like they go fishing, they go tour the land, look at the traditional medicines and things like that. And non-natives who are already working in the health field. And so we got actually two programs going on. One is for the students, that's with North Island College. Then the other one is we bring the people who are already nurses and doctors or social workers, and they apply and come. Again, it's the same thing though. They live and learn from the land, and we introduce them to things that they've never seen. Boat riding, canoes and things like canoe riding, and then they climb the bluff and things that they wouldn't learn about in ordinary education, but coming to our own land and learning and finding out what are the petroglyphs, what was it like before we encountered Europeans, you know, teach them all this, that we did have a good life, even though it may have been hard, but we were healthy. We were healthy. We lived off the land and everything was natural. This is all the things we teach them. And I'm really grateful for North Island College. There's 3 or 4 teachers, nursing teachers, that are so open and willing to learn and pass it on to the non-natives, you know. It is unbelievable, the changes in these people. This lady came and she said, "Evelyn, do you remember me?" I said, "No, I'm sorry, I don't." And she crouched down right beside me and she said, "I'm one of the first students you took to Rivers," she said to me. "And I just want to thank you for all the teachings." By this time, tears was running out of her. She said, "I learned so much. I know I'm a better person. I know I'm a better nurse, all because of what we learned from you. And I want to thank you." And Yvonne said, "Thank you. Thank you for telling Evelyn all that. She loves to hear her success stories." But that was only one. A lot of the students that I have met and don't remember because there's so many of them have all changed. You know, they say, "I transformed. Something happened to me," you know. Yeah.
That's so rewarding, hey?
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. So when I get asked, "Well, when are you retiring?" I say, "When I'm no more," or when all the schools change in Canada.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. It was amazing to be able to sit and talk with you and have you share some of your knowledge with us. I really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. And when you got it going, let me know.
Yeah, I can send you a copy.
Yeah.
Thank you.